done with one thing, got to get another. These are the rear deck speakers. They're old TSA 116 or A1675, 120 watt, 4 ohms. This one I did the little 5-volt battery or 9-volt battery little test to see if they'd even respond to that. Nothing. The other one, the driver's side one, is working, but this one is not. So it means new speakers. So I just got some cheapies from Crutchfield on the way. So we'll be replacing these. But these were 3-way. I'm going back in with 2-ways. Couldn't really, I mean, I wasn't willing to spend over 60 bucks for a pair of speakers. It's just not me. So, so these are coming. I get those replaced. And so, and what sucks about this the most is so excuse me, the amplifier, the MTX amplifier, it's a Thunder 4244. Anyway, I found the manual online, pulled it up, looked at the specs. The internal crossover that the power I'm sending to these front speakers, the crossover for it is rated at 85, and I don't know what the high number is, but 85. Now these are 60 for low range, 60 hertz, but the signal it's going to get is 85. So these, you're not even going to be able to reproduce with what these were designed to make. But I have the tweeters in the door, and I asked a friend of mine who seems to know what he knows about car stereo stuff. And I said, well, is the 85 too low of a number to send to the tweeters? And he said, yeah, pretty much. So I bought these inline crossover or capacitors, or whatever you want to call them. But they actually block the signal up higher. And they're single wire in, single wire out. They look like a resistor, basically. And you install it on the positive lead to the tweeter. From the power that's coming obviously to here, I guess you're just going to tee out and provide positive, negative here, positive, negative here, positive and negative up to the tweeter. Negative goes to the tweeter, and the positive goes into that capacitor, out of the capacitor onto the tweeter for the positive side. That's just this kind of stuff, you know. I don't have a lot of patience for it. It's not something I really get a lot of pleasure out of, and it seems like, well, this thing was messed up. I mean, the speaker was bad, the radio was fried. I had to reroute all the wiring, so it ends up being like I had to do it, but I didn't want to do it. So soldering. I've been trying to solder most everything, and I'm not the world's best solderer, but it's worked out. Next up, I'm going to take these apart and clean them up. I've been finding that wherever these people did this, they did solder it at least. So I'm going to pull these apart, inspect them, and see what they look like. But outside of that, like I said, these are the regular, the line to RCA converters. I've got everything else. I went to a much larger speaker wire for the deal. Soldered all that stuff in, got that going. So all that's done for the front speakers. But like I said, when it comes over here, because really these speaker wires here are coming in from the amplifier, and then they go into the stock wiring and go out to the doors. Now, yeah, much like, you know, putting on a intake manifold that's poured and polished but not poured and polished in the head, I don't know how much of a difference using large speaker wires make that then go down into smaller wires. I don't know. But those other wires, some of them were kind of, they almost look like they were internally melting or something like that. The sheathing, the clear sheathing for the wiring was discolored and real brown and stuff like that. So anyway, I bought new speaker wire. That's the gauge I went with. I think it was 12 gauge, maybe. But at any rate, those are all ran. So these go out to the door speakers here. And of course over here, there's the brown and gray, or tan and gray, you'd want to say for that. So my understanding of it is from here, this will get there's a connector that goes in here that has 2 leads coming out of it. That's going to be sent to the mid-range woofer, and it's going to get 85 hertz. And then from there, I'm also going to have 2 different other wires coming off of that up to the tweeter, but of course in the positive side of the feed, it's going to have that resistor, and then you just continue on with the negative to the negative here. So that's coming, should be here tomorrow. The rear speakers, I think they'll be here maybe Monday, maybe, because of the weekend. But outside of that, just kind of piecemealing it along. Then once all that's done, I've got to rewire, or I guess wire manage this for the wideband. Everything else on here just got to wire manage it. So it's coming, but it's not something I'm really enjoying, and I kind of wished I hadn't even started it. But I'm here, and I'm going to finish it to the end, so we'll pick back up. Well, I'm actually glad I checked that wiring, because now, like I said, these are the line to RCA converters, and I labeled everything. So like I said, not a good stereo guy, but so I know this is for the front speakers, and then this one here is for the rear speakers. And so this one turns into an RCA. It goes back and plugs into the MTX. And so I got to looking on here, and of course I don't have a wiring diagram for these, but it goes probably without saying, and I know that's not a guarantee, but the line without the black line in it is the positive, or the intended positive connection, and the line with the black line in it, like this one, is the negative. Okay, so I said, okay, well maybe that isn't right. Let's look at the wiring diagram for the Saturn's radio or wires, and let's see what is negative, what's positive, and let's see what they got it all hooked up to. So of course I have my trusty diagram here that I thought I wasn't going to have to mess with. But if you look, the left front speaker positive wire is tan. The left front speaker negative wire is gray. So that was the one that looked like it was backwards. All the rest of them, I said, well, let me just check the rest of them. All the rest of them followed the logic that the non-black wire coming out of the converter was solid, and the negative was the one that had the black line in it. Every one of these other ones going to the rear speakers were just that way. So all these were hooked up correctly. Negative to negative, positive to positive, etc. These two were correct going to the right front speaker, but the left front speaker, that was reversed. And that might explain why the left front speaker wire, stereo speaker was bad. And and I always thought it was weird, because I would try to fade and then do the left-right adjustments on the radio, and it was weird. It would go like from my left front corner to my right rear, and I mean, it was all messed up. And I thought it was just perhaps the way the speakers were set up in the back, but it looks like something here might have been the problem all along. So these wires, I didn't have much to work with. I ended up taking some shrink tubing, just shrunk them over the sheathing for the wire itself. So when I went over with these like basically protectors here, they're clear, but you spray them as you heat them up. Glue emits out from inside, so it makes for a nice good connection. But I did solder both of these up in there, and these are right, so I left them alone. But anyway, so yeah, I'm glad I checked all that, because otherwise all this would have been for nothing, because the system would have been back to square one, operating wrong as it had before. So just that little bit. And so I thought, what's the... I read some articles where perhaps, or actually saw some YouTube videos where people were having some issues with Wi-Fi reception. And I would think that most people are just kind of jamming it up back behind the radio with all that other mess. And I don't know if that's interfering with the signal. So I ended up using, it comes with double sticky side tape. And I'm going to try this and see if I have issues. If so, then I'll bring it outside the radio cavity back there, back up somewhere more, I guess, more line of sight-ish kind of. I know it doesn't work off line of sight, but getting it closer may help. And then the GPS, this also had double stick tape on it. So what I did was, once I put this bezel from Metra on here, I got it all fastened on the side of here. This, of course, is going to be where they bolt up at. And so this is the bolt up points, just like the factory radio, and I've already kind of slid it there and made sure. Now, when doing this, the reason they're kind of spaced like this and positioned like they are is because, remember, when the bezel goes over the radio here, right here is where your rear defrost button, and there was some other, I only have the rear defrost on this car. It's a 97 SC1, so it's kind of, it doesn't have all the features. I think, I'm not sure what the other buttons were used for, but at any rate, mine only has the rear defrost, but it's like this wide, and it sticks up pretty high. But I've already checked, as it slides in, it should clear both of these easily. And of course, now with the radio, it's going to be that far from receiving a signal. Probably not so much mattering for this, but for this especially, because this is going to be getting from satellites. And of course, I had to label it because I'm stupid, just long enough to make sure I didn't plug it into the wrong hole. You know, like I said, radio is not my forte. I don't really get into this kind of stuff. It's been a learning curve for me. And many of you probably who put a lot of radios in cars and speakers and all this stuff we're talking about, yeah, you probably know exactly what's going on. But this doesn't have so much to do with the rear mount turbo side of it, except that it's what I'm doing to the car to make it where I want it to be for the medium to short to long term. These are those little inline deals that you basically place in line to the tweeter that you're running, and I think it stops it at 5600 or 5800 is the signal, and it's one line in, one line out, and it's spliced into the positive wire, and the negative wire goes on and connects like it normally would to the signal coming from the amplifier. So I've got these. There's two. It came in a pack. In case you're interested, the part number is BB6PR, and it's for 4 ohm speakers. Had to order another deal of this. I was just short by about 10 feet, routing it the way I wanted, so I had to get some more of this wire, 12 gauge wire. Short of that, this is one of those free items that came with the radio. And pardon the hand, I got to learn to hold it with my other hand. This is that Samsung Note 10 Plus. It's got a pretty good camera on it and stuff, so that's why I use it more so than the GoPro. But back to this. I kind of struggled with what I would do with this. This radio does not have recording feature on there. So I already run a dash cam for accidents and things like that. Today's world, you never know. And so I thought, well, this is a dash cam, but if I put it on the front so it can look forward, what point is it serving? It's not like it's recording anything for any accident, for stuff like that, crime, whatever. So I said, how can I best use this? And I thought, well, maybe I can put it as like a rear view mirror camera, right? So instead of recording review, just if I want to, instead of looking in my rearview mirror, I can just punch the button on the radio and actually see the feed coming from this as I'm driving down the road as a rearview camera, and just leave that on like that. So where I'm thinking about mounting it is on, you know, they have the, pardon the moving around here, but back right there, right on the bottom of the Cyclops, the third brake light housing, just more towards the rear of it, so when people sit back here, if I have people sitting back here, it's not like right in their face. And then I'm going to run it along this length here, up the C-pillar trim, all the way up here, and of course down through here, across the instrument cluster and into the radio. And so that way, while I'm driving, if I want, I can end up just clicking on that and getting a good picture of who's behind me, what's behind me, that kind of thing. The backup camera, of course, will handle backup duties. And I went ahead and replaced the trunk light, the dome light, and the license plate lights with LEDs, because bright white. I put those on my FJ Cruiser for the license plates alone, and wow, what a difference they made. So it's going to be these, the backups, and of course the trunk light. Because the trunk light is so milked out yellow, it doesn't offer a whole lot of vision at night. So I am going to go ahead and stab this thing in here. I'm going to run this cable. I probably will need this. I have an extension for this, the USB, but I'm going to go ahead and get a longer extension just to make sure I can route it the way I want to route it, and make sure I don't run out of room. But that's where I think I'm going to put this camera. I think that'll be the best use, is just to kind of like while I'm driving down the freeway, because you can't activate the backup camera unless, of course, it's in reverse, unless you rigged it some way that you would have a switch that it would come on no matter what. But I don't want to deal with all that. It's kind of stupid. I've got that already. So what I would want then is that while I'm driving, if I'm playing music, have the Torque app on it, I can just go back to the home screen, select media on here, and then put this on if I'm trying to check out. And it would give me, of course, you probably can't use these both at the same time. As soon as it goes into reverse mode, it's going to default to the reverse camera. And then, but just driving down the road, it'd give me some back view about what's happening. The only thing I have real issue with any of this stuff, whether it be the backup camera, the dash cam, you know, I'm going to great lengths to make all this stuff work. Wi-Fi, GPS, position it correctly. Man, I just got that nagging feeling. Made in China, made in China, made in China. All this to get 6 months of use out of it, if that. And how often would I drive this car in 6 months' time? You know, I just don't have a whole lot of confidence that I'm not going to be swapping this thing out in 6 months. So it's kind of, is it worth the effort? So, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm stupid like that. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how long we get out of it and stuff, and hopefully, cross our fingers. This was made by a gentleman who took pride in his work, and I realized the quality of material, no matter who put it together. You know, if it's junk material, then the guy could have put everything together perfectly and it still not last 6 months. So, but it is what it is. Just continuing on. So yeah, there it is, mounted on there. It's just got the double-sided tape, and I've curled it back around and ran it up underneath the rubber lip for that plastic cover, and then I'm gonna run along the back there, along this trim here where your clothes hook's at, and then finally I'm going to come down here down to the base and run the wire all the way back to the back of the radio. So it shouldn't be in the way too much. Obviously, it's just a little deal. We'll see how it functions and then go from there. All right, but crap, these speakers are in. I've got this lead coming up here. When I put the door panel on, there's some female spades that it's going to snap into coming from the tweeter. And of course, one of these has that inline 56 or 5800 hertz filter on it. So that's that side. There's that side. Finally got this thing put in. Man, I tell you what, if you asked me if I wanted to do a rear mount turbo again, or this, as involved as the rear mount turbo was, I'd say the rear mount turbo. Yeah, again, it's kind of like body work and painting. I'm just not the kind of person that really feels a lot of reward once I'm done. I just feel like, okay, now, and I also like to drive and listen to the turbo and listen to the engine sounds more so than the radio. So why did you do this, Kurt? I did it because you can fill this up with gauges from torque the torque app, GPS, does have a backup camera. If this works the way I set it up, I'll be able to select rear camera, and just this would act like a large rear view mirror basically. The Android features on here, I like that. Otherwise, a simple single DIN with a little cubby hole underneath it would have been fine, or a double DIN, you know, whatever. This does, like I said, have the ball joint. It's nice and sturdy. It turns really solidly. It feels solid. But like people have been commenting, this is the screen protector film, obviously, so I haven't taken that off yet, but you can feel the actual surface if you listen. It wants to grab. It's like I don't know how many centimeters over. So that's something you want to be careful of. If you say you're wiping down your interior in here with some Armor All and a rag, excuse the finger, you might catch it and just rip this whole screen off. So I don't know if it would make any sense to go around here. I don't know, man. I'm not going to mess with it, but an emery cloth or something maybe, and just sand the edge down enough to where it doesn't want to catch on something. Never know. I may end up doing that. But anyway, I'm going to fire it up here in just a moment, and I'll come back as soon as that happens. So I didn't show this just now because I didn't really know if it was even going to work. I don't know if I had all my wiring right or anything. As soon as I started to turn it on, I said, wait a minute, I never even remember connecting a ground to this, or, you know, just my mind was going. But anyway, here it is. It booted up. This is the standard or the base deal. I'm actually using a Gamma launcher on here, but this is the standard deal. I don't have my speakers hooked up or my amps set up yet in the back. I just wanted to see if this thing would actually light up and just turn on. And I was actually going to check the rear view camera and the backup camera, because you don't need the speakers hooked up for that. But anyway, yeah, there it is. The initial boot took 45 seconds. And so I'm going to turn it off right now and turn it back on, and then see what happens. Okay, so power it off. I gotta shake my key a little bit with my anti-theft. Look, comes right up. Ain't that cool? Of course, it hadn't been down but for a few more seconds, so maybe an overnight sit, maybe it goes into a different startup mode. But this is pretty respective of what I saw on the reviews. The first boot was 30 seconds, this one was 45, but this one started up right away. And they say from here on out, you can expect it to fire up just like that quick. So, I'll do a full review on it, go through the features and stuff, or you can just look up YouTube. I'll probably just do it for my channel alone, just so people can reference this and have something to go by, should you care. Again, would you believe I'm still waiting for my freaking resonators? The whole thing got lost, I guess because of COVID, so I had to reorder them. They're due here, I think, in another 5 to 6 days, hopefully. But anyway, waiting on that so I can switch gears and get back into that and finish that portion up. But anyway, this thing's running. I'll get the speakers hooked up and all that stuff, and I'll post up another deal with a review of all the features on this thing. All right, so it's the next day. Kind of stopped where we were at yesterday. I'm going to do the boot after it's set all night and see how quickly it boots up. Hopefully it'll boot up quickly. There it is. Check that out. And I don't know why it went to that screen, but we'll go home. And yesterday the time was all wrong, so I had to go in there and select America. I mean, got every freaking country in the world in there in time zone. Took me a little bit. So it's, what, 10 o'clock on May 15th. So again, this is the screen. Yesterday, before I left, I did check, and this is my shift knob installed. Real quick, I'll touch on that. I mean, it's nothing spectacular. These set screws, you see how far they, let me get in there. See how far they stick out? I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that they're silver either. Scratched it up a bit when I was drilling out the center section so that I could put it on this post. So I think Harbor Freight has like a little kit, like a set screw kit with all kinds of sizes and stuff. I know this is shoot, I think it's an M6 by 1.0, something like that. I measured it yesterday. But anyway, I wrote it down. So I'm going to go there and get that kit, and then I think those are all black, and hopefully they won't be as long. And so I'll replace these several ones with black ones, because again, I'm not a real showy guy, but I want it to look okay. And it seems to me like when you're looking in here, zzz, your eyes go right to these little nubs. There's 2, 4, 6. And so I greased up the ball while I had this off up underneath here. Feels nice and smooth. And I actually remember I was saying how my other shifter would sit probably about this high, and the shifts are real notchy and stuff, and getting it over into 5th was kind of like you had to really kind of push it from over this side to get it that way. So it'd be like a shift over like this. This actually has a little bit better. It's a little bit higher, probably more up along the shift, the stock shift shifter height maybe. So anyway, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and of course 5th. Now check this out. This is the backup camera. Now yesterday before I left, I did test the backup camera. The dang thing was upside down, so I had to go back there. It had a couple of Allen screws and a bracket, so you take them both off each side, flip the camera over, put them back in. Bob's your uncle. So here's the rear view camera. It's not the best image, but it does the trick. There it is. It does have the marks already inside there. I think I touched on that earlier, and I've already set them up to where when it hits the red, I'm hitting with my bumper, whatever's behind me. I tested it with that roll around cart. So like I said, it's not the best image, but it's an image and it's a backup camera. So anyway, so I got that done, and you put it back, and that comes back on. So far, I like it, but like I said, I hope it wasn't all for nothing. I've got these, this is the, it's got a couple USB parts that stick out here. You can hook up your cell phone and stuff to it. And the other one on this end up here, I've got connected to the dongle. And again, I don't know if I really ever needed that or not. I just bought it because I actually thought they were talking about the Agama car launcher or some other car launcher. If you wanted to use something else, I thought you had to have that. But it's Android Auto. Now I'm not a big Spotify person. I actually prefer to load songs on my phone or put them in a floppy, or not a floppy, that shows how old I am, floppy disk. Put them in a zip drive and then shove it into a USB and play off that. You know, I'm not big on getting on Spotify and all these other deals. So if Android Auto, that's what it is, I'm not going to be using it. But anyway, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to get the speakers all hooked up now, and we'll finally get to hear what kind of sound it puts out. And then I'm going to go through the features on the radio and learn those, and then I'll sign back on with you guys and just give you a quick rundown how to access. I haven't been able to find the part where you can actually view the dash cam, the one that I had hooked up in the back. I don't know if it's AVN. I don't know where it's at, but I'll find out. But at any rate, all right, so getting the carpet put in now. Of course, got all the side trim pieces in the back over there. It goes up underneath that section there, that gray trim. You got to take off the seat belt deal to get it in there. Wire management, I got that as managed as it can be. That little dangly right there, that's supposed to be able to change the dash gauge cluster from blue, green, magenta, all these different colors. It works every now and then, so hopefully it'll work. If not, I just have it there in case. So carpet going in. Little hiccup with the stereo system. So the short of it is, the amplifiers that I had, the MTX and the Jensen, when I first powered up the radio, got all the speakers hooked up, kind of pseudo hung the door panels up front to see if the tweeters were working. Well, the front door speakers were working, but no rear deck speakers. So messed with it for a little bit, lost the right front door speaker, but I gained the rear package tray speakers. The woofer played the whole time. So would pick up the MTX, you'd hear like a crackle. So I went around bouncing my hands on all the connections, and the RCA on that side here ended up, the heads of them, you can apparently screw those silver pieces off and on onto the gold plated portion, and they were loose, so I tightened them. And then more stuff happened. At no time, I mean, I did check power and ground to each unit. Remote turn-ons were all there. The lights were on. I'm not a big diagnostic of radio stuff, but I went ahead and checked each speaker connection, and with, I think if memory serves, they told you to check it with AC volts. I don't know, but I checked it the way they wanted it, and I was getting everything except out of the right front door speaker up there. And at that point in time, it sounded dang good. Everything was playing. And then the MTX kind of started blinking out. The rear deck speaker stopped working. I said, okay. I remember way on back, I have this Alpine V12. Y'all gonna laugh. It's a MRV F400. So I brought it out, hooked it up just like I had the MTX. Everything was working at that moment. And I say moment because it only lasted probably about 2 minutes. And then it got worse off than this one did, the MTX. So I'm not sure if this Jensen is good or not, but the game plan is I've got a Pioneer one coming that has a sub-out, like a sub-output that I can connect to that, just like this MTX. If that works, great. If not, it'll at least rule out whether or not that Jensen is good or not. And then there's a sister amp to that Pioneer unit that you can get that is like that. So I'll end up getting them at $130 for the Pioneer. I hated spending the money, but like I said, these, I think I had this one first, and that would have been back in 1999, I think. This one was back in 1993, believe it or not. That one was purchased, I think, when I was at Saturn Motorsports in 2001, 2002, not sure. Anyway, they're old crap, so what did I expect? And it's pretty neat because the pieces that go right there to cover the belt reel, they end up, the colors on here, it says, let's see if this thing will focus. If you can read that, it says warm gray, biscuit. Come on, baby. There it goes. Warm gray, medium biscuit 2, and ebony. And of course, that's the colors that I'm working on for the interior. It had the black dash, of course, gray seats, and then the biscuit carpeting. So by having all the black seats leathered and having the seats themselves black, I think when the SC2, when it was black leather, I'm not sure if they had black leather in here or not, I'm not sure. So just sticking with that theme. Alright, so center console's in. Of course, you guys know, y'all have done all that before, it's no big deal. My air fuel ratio isn't reading, and more than likely because I lifted this up and I've got those wires so tight in there, maybe it pulled out or something, so I'll check into that. So I got the torque app running. I really like this app. I mean, you can do pretty much anything. I've added some plugins and stuff, knock detector, real time. You got graphing on here, test results, of course, pull fault codes, real time information. For some reason, the GPS isn't connecting. I bet it's because maybe it has to be out from behind here. So not only do I need to connect the dimmer to a 12 volt switch source so these can light up over here at night, when I'm back there, I'm going to go ahead and pull that, route it out here, and stick it somewhere, maybe right here on the top here, so it can receive and such. I don't know. I'm still going to maybe get a hold of these people and ask if it has to be like that, or can it be anywhere on the car. It shouldn't matter though. But again, this isn't my forte. So I've got some of this set up. I don't know if this is what I'm going to stick with, but of course, real-time information, revs, and you would think you'd want gauges on here that you don't already have on your dash, and I'm in agreement. So of course some of this might change, but knowing the exact number as opposed to just a needle is helpful, so I may leave that up there. The intake air, I do want that because I want to know how efficient the intercooler is being on a maybe stop and go traffic, so that the intake air, I'll know, watch it be able to go cooler as I'm moving. Of course, the intake pressure, since it's a 1-bar map sensor and the Saturn's PCM can't recognize boost anyway, this is atmospheric pressure while I'm sitting here, 14.7 or 14.6. Load, how much load's being put on the engine, of course throttle, how much throttle's into it. And really the reason for some of these is, as I review the data graphing, I'm going to want to know at what throttle I was at when I had X amount of load, what was my intake air temperature, what was my, of course PSI will be 0 at that point, but revs and so forth, so I can see where I'm at. Swipe down and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 misfires current, and then here's historical. This is bank 1 sensor 1 voltage O2 sensor. This is bank 1 sensor 2, so the rear O2. Short-term, long-term fuel trims. Up here we got your readiness monitors. Here, so you can clear your fault codes with one tap. Don't know if I'll keep that or not, but you see over here you got multiple screens you can use, which is pretty nice. You can pretty much load this thing up with whatever stuff you can get. You can actually go in here and download extra PIDs, like a group of them. There's a GM, Ford, Valhall. Of course, being European, you got stuff that you're probably never going to use, but it's there. You can go into the OBD settings and select faster readings and stuff like that. So a lot of these things, you'll see these little green lights blinking. That's the update, the updating speed on it. So you want those obviously as fast as possible. Some of you already know about the torque app, but for those that don't. So pretty much that's it. I've just got to figure out, I'm leaving the knee bolster pad out of here for now until I figure out what's going on with that. Maybe it is the module. I did move it and, you know, plugged everything back in. Who knows? Maybe I didn't plug the right thing back in. But so this is pretty much, let's go ahead and get out of here. Yes, I want to exit it. And it goes back to here. I think, now this is the Agama car launcher. You can select this as your home screen. Of course, I did it so I could have the Saturn deal. It's pretty cool because you can go in and select the time. And of course, the seconds tick off as you're doing it. There's Saturn logo. You got more of a analog type clock. I don't like that, so I want to go with the logo. You can go with, I don't know, in case you're ever curious whether you're heading north on North I-45 or whatever. So it's just something to, you know, it's just one of those things. You can select anything you want. You can go to your radio, watch all the fancy stuff as your radio's playing. I've selected dub music player as my radio selection. Right now I'm using hotspot on my car to get the stuff, but here, like, you swipe left, you can get apps. This is my rear view camera, like my digital video recorder. I was wrong, actually. I think I mentioned this. I thought that you could not record with this, and I think as long as you have like a little disc, a little zip drive or whatnot plugged into the USB port, you can record video, you can take snapshots. But like I said, I'm already going to have like a standalone front-mounted video recorder, so I don't need something for the front that's dual purpose. So like I said, this would be good for recording somebody behind me acting like an idiot, and I can get them on tape. Of course, the picture itself isn't too hot. I've shown you this, basically the backup camera. Once you go into reverse, it gives you your backup picture. Of course, the push around cart's behind there. Come out of it, it goes right back to where you were at last. Sorry, going back. The internet, you can pick which internet you want to use. You would load it here, go into your settings, and just pick, you know, Chrome, Firefox, whatever. Music, you can put whatever music players you want. It gives you up to 4. Of course, I would use Dub Player. Navigation, I like Waze over pretty much any of them. There's several, obviously, you know that. There's your radio. You can select what kind of deal you want for your radio. I haven't figured out, this is apps, a Bluetooth, OBD check, the rear camera. Phone, I haven't figured out how to do the phone yet, to sync it to my phone and get my contacts and such. I will, obviously. This is for this button here. You see the stars and moon, and then here's the night. You can go in and actually set the brightness that you want per each, or you can put it on auto, but you still have to go in and select the brightnesses for auto. It's just that when it does change, it's going to change to what you want it set at. Microphone, I imagine that's just like what it says. As you go in, you can go to your internet, you can, you know, how many stomachs does a cow have, that kind of thing. So you can ask it and it'll go. See, internet, you can. It was listening somewhat. I've got the mic mounted right here, and we'll see how that all turns out once I'm, you know, get this thing going. Shoot, short of that, let's see here, go back home. I think this here ends up being the main, like, volume and stuff. So you could change it over here with these buttons up and down. This is go back, there's your home, and that's your, when I hit that, instead of the thing powering off, it hits mute. I don't know. There's a built-in mic here, which people have said it's not any good. I don't know what RST is. I'll figure it out. But yeah, I mean, on apps, you can go into your apps and stuff, and this is all your apps. You can, I did find that I had Netflix on here. Dude, I'm not going to be watching Netflix. YouTube, maybe for the passenger while we're driving. But me, no. I mean, I'm 52. I don't need to be watching YouTube while I'm driving. It's pretty idiotic. While I'm at car shows or races or something like that, I want to get a break or whatever. It's got your calendar. It's got your Gmail. I've already got that loaded up on here. File browser. I did load Easy Connect. Maybe that's what I have to do to get my phone stuff on here. Like I said, I'll find out. All kinds of stuff. You know, here's radio. That's the one that came with the car. So I'll probably use that as the app for radio. I mean, I don't have to have anything specific. And plus, it'll be the one that came with the system, so it won't have any interface issues or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I like it so far. The question is, again, was all this worth it? Was it to where, you know, I've got all this installed, will it last 6 months? I saw some guy on YouTube that had mentioned it was a 6-month update, except for a couple small quirks. He was happy with it. It'd been working fine. But, you know, you do something like this and you expect it. At least I've been used to. To give you some idea, and I'm going to tell you this real quick. When I went in the Army, in 1986. Okay? And I went over to Germany. And while there, one of the first rites of passage, or the first things you do, is you get your massive stereo system for your room. I mean, I swear, that's pretty much how the base exchanges stayed open, was how these guys would go in and buy these big tower speakers with, you know, 2 12-inch woofers in them, and a tuner at the time, radio, a record player, all kind, cassette player, all kinds of stuff. And although, you know, the record player and cassette player have long since been gone, I still have to this day, and we're talking 1986, the Sony receiver amplifier, the tuner. And that thing's working just like the day I bought it. And what is so freaking sad in this world today, because everything's been outsourced to China, when things were made in Taiwan, we didn't have this problem. But things are made in China, and it's like they give you something just so you can buy something and say you got it. But their ideas of longevity, the quality of the parts, of course, the reason for that, a quick lesson, they use inferior parts because in order to keep the American way of life, in other words, everybody's got everything, you can't sell it at a price that would justify using good quality parts. You know why? Because the dollar is so weak. Everybody thinks the dollar, it is the strongest currency right now, but the dollar's purchasing power is so weak that if they were to make these parts with quality parts like they used to, no one could afford them because you'd have to spend so much money because the dollar's not worth that much. It can't purchase that much. And that's just the sad state of affairs for currency, just worldwide currency, let alone ours. So I digress. We could be here all day talking about that. But so hopefully these things last, so it makes it worth the effort. Because, there ain't no warranty probably on these things past 6 months. And so I'm just hopeful that we get some time out of it. And of course, I'll update as needed. So what's up next? I'm going to go ahead and I'm supposed to see those resonators before 9 p.m. tonight. Whatever. If I do, I'm going to shift gears, get out of the interior for a little while, give myself a break. I'll come back to this, put it, like I said, wire in the, I don't want to hook the dimmer to the dimmer switch. I don't care if it dims as long as it's on at night. So I'm going to hook it to a 12 volt switch. So I'll need to pull it out a little bit. I'll have an answer for myself for the GPS before I do that. That way I don't pull it, wire in the dimmer, insert it, pull it, relocate the GPS. So I'll be doing it in one fell swoop. So in the meantime, I'm gonna get this exhaust done so I can get this thing inspected, get it registered, so I can go drive it on the street, so I can then do some finer tuning on whatever the fuel system is I have here. And I say finer tuning, I'm just going to be driving this thing to get a broader understanding of how boost comes on, where I need to set it, should I move the controller up here to the front. I want to get it up on a rack so I can take the exhaust down and wrap it so I can protect it from, leaching heat into the intake tube coming up front. So I've got a ways to go on it yet before I have my answers before I install the unit chip. So still waiting to go back to work, which I got some positive news today. Things are picking up already as we move into the second tier for Texas. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll get that call not long from now. And of course, then of course, we got some catch up to do and stuff like that with our finances and such. So we'll do that first, obviously. The more important, meaningful stuff comes first, then this other stuff. But at any rate, just wanted to show you guys this progress, and I'll update you shortly.